I didn't get along with anybody. I fought with all the teachers from kindergarten through 12th grade. I had no plans to go to college. We were a blue-collar family, and nobody ever talked about going to college. By a miracle, I had an art teacher who submitted my artwork to Kent State without telling me, and I got offered a partial scholarship, and all of a sudden I was anonymous, and I had access to materials and techniques. I was learning how to make art. My name is Mark Mothersbaugh, and my company Mutato Musica scored A Real Bug's Life. When I was 12 years old, watching the Ed Sullivan Show, and I saw the Beatles come on, it made me say, that's what I'm going to do with my life. At 12 years old, I was certain I was going to be in a band. I had absolutely no idea what it meant. And I just remember being totally depressed that I didn't play guitar, bass, or drum. And I remember the next week, Ed Sullivan said, I'm back by popular demand, the Beatles. But now there was something, I'm looking, and one of them is sitting at a card table, it looks like. And I'm thinking, what is that? And it's John Lennon. And I'm like, holy Toledo, he's not playing a guitar, he's playing a keyboard. And so when he started using his elbow to play, oh my God, I was just so totally blown away by the whole thing. And I just then doubled down on torturing my father to try to get him to buy a $250 portable electric keyboard so I could join a band. Kent State changed my life. I went to school during a crazy time when there were shootings in 1970, and it really changed the way I thought about the world. And that's how I ended up meeting Jerry Casale, who I started Devo with. We came up with the idea of a band that questioned man's superiority as a species, and we talked about that in our music. And I was feeling like, yeah, we're in a techno culture now, and we need new sounds. What are they gonna be? Where are they gonna come from? So I became interested in electronic instruments. That was sort of what I was bringing to Devo, was bringing in a new vocabulary. I was always listening to sounds around me. I mean, construction machinery, you know, the pneumatic drill that took the bolts off of your car tire. Everything to me was fair game, and so I sampled a lot of stuff early on. I liked performing on stage, but that sort of turned into Groundhog Day after about 10 years, which was funnier when you're 25 than when you're 35, 45, 55, you know. Somewhere in the mid-'80s, I started scoring television and film and found out I really liked it. I could write in 1 week an album's worth of music, and then the next week they'd need me to write another album's worth of music, and I loved that. I love writing music. I think the score for A Real Bug's Life could be described as very dramatic and attempting to inject emotions into them, to give the viewers another way to look at insects. What sucked me into wanting to do this show is, oddly enough, I was born legally blind, but they only discovered that when I was 7. I couldn't see things that were out here. If they were here, they were already a fog. But if they were here, I could see them. And I remember laying on the ground and playing with ants and worms and caterpillars and things that I could see up close. And to me, that was so fascinating to see these little creatures when I was 5 years old that were all articulated and had their own world that they were living in. When I first saw the film, I just looked at the way the insects moved, and it was so impressive. I just thought, oh, let's do all electronic. But the producers and directors, they wanted it to sound orchestral. They wanted it to have a human feel to it, and they were afraid that electronic music would be too cold, and they were right. I tried it, and they were right. So think of all the instruments in an orchestra, and when you play 10 notes in a theme, and you play them again and again, you know, in electronics, they're going to sound a lot more similar, but when you have humans playing it, there's all these little imperceptible changes that make it feel human, make it feel more alive. My specific goals were to humanize and dramatize the stories. You're at the same level as the spiders, and the bugs. It's like easy for it to feel dehumanized or to feel mechanical. And by using orchestral instruments, it makes it easier to empathize with the little critters. We're using, like these kind of ethnic sounding flutes. It gives you kind of like a geographical reference. We did something similar to that with the episode Land of the Giants, which has African elements in it. So if you didn't know where you were just watching the show, the sounds kind of helped get a clue. For Big City, we were mostly going towards using a big orchestra because we're talking about little spiders on the side of a building, maybe 13 stories in the air, and then they're also down on the pavement. They're tiny in comparison. We made the music big so that it was dramatic. Even if you were a human and you were watching it in real life, it would just be something the size of a dime down on the ground. But yet we gave it the size and scope of a Godzilla movie or something, We were just looking for something emotional that would help draw people in that might be going, eek, it's a spider, I don't want to know anything about it, hit it with a newspaper. We wanted them to think of these creatures as having, their own set of needs, desires, emotions, worries, goals, and I think it has a humanizing effect.